I have to share my story this morning, and it seems very apropos because of the situation that we've been in. When I grew up in Indiana, any other Hoosiers here? A few. Yeah, good place to be from, isn't it? Anyway, growing up in the springtime and summer, we always had tornadoes. I'm talking big tornadoes. Like, I was terrified of tornadoes. We lived by the cornfield and they're very flat and you can look out. I watched one for 45 minutes doing this, coming down out of the cloud, coming directly at me. And I was on crutches. And I remember throwing the crutches into the basement, taking my dog down there, and the walls just shaking when that thing rolled through. And of course, it diverted from our house because we had a normal house, and it went to the trailer park because that's what they do. They're magnetized, or so they just go to the trailer park. Anyway, but I always was terrified of the storms. And we just came through a massive storm, a couple of them actually, and people were in different spots in this storm. And sometimes you think, well, why did, I didn't lose a vegetable, a shingle or nothing, but other people just like lost everything. One thing I learned later on in my life was my God controls the storm. We saw it in prayer because it could have been a whole lot worse, of course. We were praying against wind shear, come in, My wife was, peace be still to the thing. And because we saw Jesus was in the boat, he would command the storms because Satan doesn't command the storm. God commands the storm. So what does that got to do with you and me? Because you may be suffering right, like, well, that doesn't sound very good. Nahum chapter 1, verse 3 says this: the Lord is slow in his anger and great in power. He will by no means leave the guilty unpunished. The Lord has his way in the whirlwind and in the storm, and the clouds are the dust beneath his feet. Well, you see, if you do a study on whirlwinds, storms, you'll find out that God uses storms for not just punishment of the wicked. One verse says, the whirlwind comes and the wicked are no more. Makes you pray real quick when them storms are coming. But you remember in the scripture that whirlwind was used to pull up Elijah and translate him into heaven. Not only that, it says God spoke out of the whirlwind, and out of the storm he spoke to Job after a whirlwind destroyed his family. Sometimes God answers and speaks in the storm of life, and sometimes he uses it to rearrange things. I will tell you this: when God allows something to happen, he is speaking. You've got to say to yourself, what are you asking, Lord? What are you wanting me to learn? Speak in the storm, because you don't have to worry, because you're God's kid. What can the storm do? He is the God of the storm. He knows where you are. He has you under control. He knows everything. And even if he did take your life, who wants to stay here? If we've learned anything, this paradise can get really ugly really fast. But I got good news. There's a paradise in heaven that's eternal, that will never fade. It will never pass away. It is reserved for you and for me. We can take what this storm says and apply it to our life. And don't say, well, God was mad at me and he knocked my garage over. Well, maybe he's just saying, look, maybe you're a little too tight with stuff. God forbid he wake us up in the area to realize this is all going to burn. It's not going to be anymore anyway. How dare him take my air conditioner? I'm sorry if he took your air conditioner. I mean, people are really struggling. This is true. And I'm not to make little of that. But ask yourself, in the struggle, in the storm, because there are storms in our lives that are worse than physical storms. My story starts off with one of those storms. My story goes like this. Growing up in Indiana, I grew up in a home, without getting too much into the weeds of the detail of it, alcohol had ravaged my home. Alcohol had destroyed my family, my home. My mom and dad were divorced. Back then, you didn't get divorced. I grew up in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. And what happened to me, though, and here's the deal. I'm not going to compare my trauma with your trauma, or you may know somebody that has you talk about trauma. I got real trauma. As a counselor for 30 years, trauma, the worst trauma you can have doesn't necessitate the worst pain you can have. You can have little trauma, big pain, or you have big trauma, little pain. It doesn't matter. It depends on what happens to your soul. My soul growing up was fractured in a way that I was nonverbal. Pretty much in school, I didn't talk. We went to Tampa, Florida from Indiana. When I was in the 4th grade, I didn't talk. We moved through several schools. I was labeled educationally stupid. They weren't nice back then. They were like, educationally retarded. No, they're like, he's in special ed. No, he was stupid. You're stupid. Line up the stupid kids for class. I went, did my SRA book. My brain was whacked, but it was more my soul was fractured from what I saw, from the bruises and the cuts and the drama that went home. I didn't know when I came home growing up, is this going to be a good day or a bad day or a so-so day? The favorite words in my mouth growing up were, I hate life. I hate it. Hated life. And God says, well, I think I have a different story for you. You see, the time you were born, before you were born, people had a story for your life. You have a story for your life, and it may not be the right story. Because God has a story for your life. Your story needs to be seen in the picture of the grand narrative of God. It's more important, the eternal, than this temporal world that we live in. Growing up in childhood, there was abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, all that. And the good part, my mom and dad, honor them. They both came to Christ, gave their life to Jesus Christ, became working in the church. They're godly people, okay? They're both passed away now. But back then, my dad was in the Navy, and it was really bad. He had shell shock, which is post-traumatic stress. And it was really bad for us kids. He's a really big guy. Growing up was really, really tough. Well, my dad wanted to fix our family because they got a divorce, they got remarried, wants to fix the family. So where do you go to get the family fixed? You go to God, right? Well, where do you find God? We didn't grow up in church. I didn't know Jesus from the Easter Bunny. I don't know. My only experience was church. They shoved me in a vacation Bible school in a church one time, and they shoved a book at me. I'm dyslexic. I can't read. I've never read a book. And they hand me a Bible in the King James in the book of Leviticus and want me to read. Come on. You're killing me. Didn't read it. Somebody else had to read it for me. Embarrassing, stupid little boy. But my dad wanted to fix his family, so he's going to find God. Where's he going to find God? Where do you find God? Church. My very first experience of church, which I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything about church. It was in Indianapolis, Indiana. We went to this big cathedral-looking thing with the ivy on the outside of it. I don't know what kind it was, but I remember going into the stone wall and going in that place, and I didn't know anything. Sit down, stand up, do this, sing Onward, Christian Soldier. I don't know what's going on. What is this place? And my dad was sitting there, and I saw him do something I've never seen him do before. He grabbed my mama's hand and really tenderly touched her when he had abused her before. And I thought, well, I don't know what this is, but if it does that, I'm in. I'll sit here and be a good boy. I won't catch nobody's hair on fire. I'll be good. I did catch somebody's hair on fire before. Anyway, so he left. He got ready to leave. The church had a great experience. Thought, this is really good for my family. This is like, there's something here. I could sense that something was there. So we get ready to walk out the door. Go out the door, connection people meet. Hey, glad you came. Hey, Mr. Stanley, so glad you came to visit us today. Here's the thing. When you come back next week, would you bring their kids in their good clothes? My dad was in the Navy, Korean War, tough dude. He told them to take you at church, and we got kids in the room. All right, you get the picture. We never went back to church. And here's the problem. When we got home, it got really, really bad. Really bad. Like God rejected us as a family. We are rejected. We are nothing. And I'm like, it got really bad. So my first experience with church was not very good at all. Well, the only thing I had in my life that kind of kept me going were my two brothers. And we always did stuff together, went out and played in the woods, shooting guns, doing stuff kids do, run the dogs. And I learned to play drums. I was a drummer in a rock band. And this is how long ago it was, guys. I used to play drum solo for In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. Dun, 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 dun. Still in my head. 30-minute drum solos. 7th grade in bars. Playing with blindfolds, no sticks, backwards. Everything's like crazy. They've done water on me. This is a big thing. That was my God, playing drums, because I didn't have to talk to nobody. I didn't have to associate with nobody. I just had to beat stuff. I can beat stuff. I knew how to beat stuff. Well, during the time of the Vietnam War, and my band leader, who was my cousin, was a draft dodger. He took off to Canada. Well, that shot the band. No more band. And it's kind of okay to play the drums by yourself, but it's a whole lot better when you play in public with the rest of the band. So I got off into motocross, and that became my God. And I worshiped every Sunday. On any Sunday, you could find me on the track. Didn't have to talk to nobody, have to deal with nobody. I just get the biggest, baddest, fastest bike and riding around that course, jumping on everything and going, And then something happened. It was called the energy crisis of the 70s. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but they were saying that you weren't going to be able to buy gasoline. You weren't be able to drive your car on Sunday except to church. Well, Sunday was when we did motocross. So I was like, I remember slumping in the chair saying, my life is over. The very thing I trusted, I could see was an idol. It wasn't no good. I wouldn't know what to call it, but I knew it wasn't anything. It was another, here it is again. Life stinks. I hate life. I hate the world. I just hate it. I love to work, though. The only thing about life is I love to work. I love to make money and work, and I got a job at International Harvester as a crane operator, as a 10-ton crane operator in the foundry. And I dropped iron into molten metal. It was a fun job. You get to drop stuff in. I worked hard 16 hours a day. I didn't care. I had money falling out of my pockets. I still lived at home, and everything seemed to be very good. Then one day the unit went down, which means we can't give any iron to the rest of the company because the units don't take it. We can't give it. So we had to stop making iron. We just had to wait. And I remember going into the office, and I had a little computer. Well, not like the computers today. Like the Orbitron is called. It's like a digital. It shook different components into my crane so I know what stuff to put into the long story. But anyway, I hear that clicking. I used to be able to stand up on that thing and sleep because it was third shift. But something happened. No people around. There was a table, and I remember opening the table. It's a National Geographic, and I was just kind of flipping through it. And all of a sudden, I saw this little boy with a belly out like this from starvation and flies on his face. And I I couldn't look at it. I just had to shut it because I'm so selfish. I realized how selfish I was. I had money. I had a job. I could do whatever I wanted to. I was taking speed to stay awake. I was drinking alcohol at lunch. I was getting into stuff, and I didn't care about nobody or nothing. When I saw that picture, something inside started churning. On the way home that morning at 7:30 in the morning, I had God spoke to me. I didn't know it was God. He said, that is your sin, that selfishness. I saw a vision, and I'm going to say things that you may not agree with. That's okay. It's my story, all right? I saw this vision of people stabbing people and hating people and just destroying people. And he said, that's your sin. That's you. You're selfish like that. I said, if that's really true, then you need to damn me to hell right now. I am not. I started spitting on myself. I hated myself. I said, this is horrible. This is what we are. I said, you need to damn the entire world. And I just bawled for like 30 minutes. I got home, and my mom and dad were never home, but they happened to be home talking about something. I don't know what. It was third shift. I remember I'm getting off in the morning, and I came in, and they go, what's the matter? What's the matter? I said, well, it says in a book that we spend more money on dog food than feeding the people that are starving, that have nothing. We don't care about nothing but ourselves. Well, my mom called my foreman up and said, he's not coming in tonight because he's had a nervous breakdown. No, I found Jesus. I found a God who showed me something, and I had never read a book in my life, ever. I picked up the Bible and started reading in Matthew. But I read things in Matthew that kind of turned my world upside down, because it said things like this: you can't be my disciple if you do not pick up, or you do not give away all your possessions, pick up your cross and follow me. You can't be my disciple if you're stuck in the world. Unless you get rid of everything you have, you cannot be my disciple. I'm saying, what? I just have all this stuff. I don't know. Funny thing, I started reading some things, and I started believing them. I believed what that book said. I said, okay, what do I do now? And my wife and I, who wasn't my wife at the time, we would get together and we're reading the Bible, and my mother sitting over there, my mother-in-law, they said, you guys are crazy kids. Go play bowling or go dancing or something. Why are you reading the Bible all the time? You're scaring me. I read the Bible, and some things that stirred up into our souls were about the second coming of Jesus. He's coming back. I said, he's coming back? And I read the gospel, and I realized he loves me. He wants me. He's after me. I'm like, no one ever told me that. I had people in my high school that were Christians. They never told me about the love of this Jesus. I was so angry by the time I figured out what we're supposed to be doing. I'm like, wait a minute. This isn't even right. The second coming was burning up inside of me. And this idea that no one could be my disciple if you don't give up all your own possessions, pick up your cross, you follow me, you sell out to Jesus. And I'm like, man, I don't see that happening. How does that work? There's another thing that kind of put in here, and I'm not trying to be political here, and I'm not trying to hurt anybody here at all. This is just my story. The thing that burned inside of me, you remember, it was back in '74. So Roe v. Wade was coming on, and people were talking about abortion and issues with abortion, and I started to learn all about what was going on with that, and realized that 97% of all abortions are for convenience or inconvenience, not rape, incest. And if you've been through that, God's got grace. I'm not saying anything against that. I'm just saying it just burned inside of me that, why are we so selfish? Why do we just do that? It's like, well, now today we call it reproductive care, and I'm like, I'm trying to be political, but I got to tell you this, it's not reproductive care. It's like calling slavery human resource issue, or union, or resources, or the Holocaust, calling it as betterment for society issues. No, it's not. It's selfishness. It's because God needs to be in our lives, and God needs to be taking care of our lives. But that burned inside of me. I could just see the selfishness. So I said, Lord, I got to quit my job. I got to give all my money away. And I had a lot of money. I gave my drum set away. I gave 4 motocross bikes away. I said, I got to go do what you told me. Come follow me, he says. Follow me. I don't know where you're going. I don't know how to do this. But I went and I stuck my thumb out with a backpack. Back then you could do that. This is after Vietnam. So January in Indiana. I told you I wasn't very smart. Hitchhike from Indiana, Pennsylvania. And I'm telling people about Jesus. You don't have to live like this, the druggies. And I'm like, you don't need to take the drugs. You don't have to live like protective all the time. There's a God in heaven who loves you. And I talked about all that. And I went all the way to Connecticut. And I tried to tell my brother who's in Connecticut about the love of Jesus. He's got so much love and care for you. And I stayed there for a while. And then I went all the way down the eastern seaboard. Ended up in Daytona Beach, Florida, on spring break. Saw miracles there. Saw people come to Christ. But if you've ever been there on spring break, it's like, whoa. I saw some crazy thing. I'll give you one quick story. They said I could go 2 hours, so I'm going to take a little bit. Anyway, Daytona Beach, I saw this rock band on the beach in Daytona, and they were playing music, and they had all these people in there, and they were passing, look, guys, we do this for free, so we're going to pass a plate to kind of help, offset our expenses. And here's the deal. If you're here and you don't have any money, take money out. I said, what? I said, if I ever do a church, I'm going to do that. I'm going to freak all the elders out. And I literally did that one day at church. I handed 700 people auditorium. I send a plate around and I said, if you're struggling and you need some cash, go for it. They're like, Because if a band can do it, God's people can do it, right? Oh, speaking of money, so Bill back there doesn't have a heart attack. I know we forget to pay our tithe and all that, but go ahead and do that too. So we can, ministry costs money. We want the ministry of this church. We got a big event coming up. This thing's coming up, by the way, and we're going to reach our community. Our community is hurting right now. They need help. They need encouragement. We need some worship out there. We need some fun out there, and we're going to do that. So get these cards, invite people to it, pay your tithe. All right, did my part. I have no dog in that fight, but it's important, right? We ought to be the generous people on the planet. It shouldn't even be, I hate talking about money. Yeah, I'm not the senior pastor, and I don't get no hefty salary, so I can tell it to you because it don't matter to me. All right. And what matters is that we're followers of Jesus, and we're not 1/10 Christians or 1/7 Christians. We're all in, all out Christians. That's what we need to be doing. All right. On the road, through my life, I was threatened to be stabbed one time in a robbery. I witnessed about Jesus. They let me go. This guy got no money. He talks about God all the time. I was almost stabbed one time by a drug dealer in Daytona Beach. I was sitting on cocaine. I said, dude, you don't need all this. He's selling drugs. You don't need to be doing this. God loves you, man. He said, get out of here. He got a knife coming at me. I'm like, look, I'm not here. You're a narc. I said, I'm not a narc. I love Jesus. I just wanted to give some Jesus to you. I've seen so many things happen. And then after that particular time, I knew God had called me into the ministry. I thought it was a mission field. I want to go tell people about Jesus that would listen, that never heard about Jesus, that weren't fortunate to hear about Jesus. And I went to a pastor one time, and I said, how do you do that? I don't know anything about how this works. I'm just reading a book, doing what it says, and telling people about how he loves them where they are. He said, well, you got to go to college. I said, you didn't hear my resume, dude. I barely made it out of high school. That's not happening. But a strange thing happened when I gave my life to Jesus Christ. My heart not only was made new, but my brain was made new. I finally had reference points. I finally had I didn't hate life anymore. It's like, I don't know what this is, but my brain works now. Long story, can't get into it. After that, I ended up going 10 years to college. Okay. The stupid little boy from Indiana goes to college. Unreal. Only God does stuff like that. So if you think you're stupid, don't even think about that. God's got a new creature He wants to put inside you. He wants to renew your mind. He wants to make you new. You're not stuck where you are. He wants to take you forward. He doesn't want to leave you where you are. If you were to see what God had planned for you, you'd probably be scared to death. Trust me. From someone who would never get in front of class and say anything in front of people. End up going to the United Nations 4 times and speaking in front of the nations. To what I had to say, okay, God, you are funny, God. I went in the Army, almost lost that girl over there because I went to sign up for the Army. I told her I wasn't going to sign up, but I did. Don't recommend it as a marriage counselor. That's not a good way to start. I don't know if you ever met a recruiter, but they're pretty tough. I went into the delayed entry program, did 6 years in the Army. But the Army took me to places and took us to places because we got married in between. First part, AIT, if you know what that is, the school. And so we moved to North Carolina. Now, you have to remember something about my family. We never had a lot of money at all, ever. But I had great kids. My kids, my sons, my daughter, they helped me do ministry. When we ended up going to North Carolina, I went through some, I'll call it disruption. I prayed one time. I had God, one time in the car, my wife and I were just praying. We were just praying in the car together, not playing bowling or nothing. We were just praying in the car. And I was just, all of a sudden this presence filled the car. We didn't know nothing was going on. The presence filled the car, and the Holy Spirit came in that car, and I started speaking an unknown language. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. My wife goes, I thought I read about that in the Bible. We find it in the Bible. So I was like, wow, this is awesome. God gives us power to defeat the enemy. Oh, that's a whole new ball game. Well, we got to North Carolina. I had a disruption. I went out there prayed because I was really excited for Jesus. I was at 4 o'clock in the morning out there praying to God, please. And I prayed this crazy, stupid prayer that goes like this: God, make me a man of God, do whatever it takes, and do it before I change my mind. Don't pray that. Don't pray that unless you're serious. If you pray that, this is what you'll find out. You aren't worth scrap without Jesus. What happened was I got tied into alcohol. Long story. Destroyed my life. Just destroyed it. Just ended up with a gun to my head. I wasn't a pastor yet, don't worry. Had my gun to my head, and I'm like, God. I didn't say God, I said something else. Anyway, I said, I'm done. Seriously, I was done. I am done. And I had my eyes closed, and this presence, I remember it came from this direction. The presence came in the room, and I heard the voice. I said, oh no, you're here to tell me what a piece of, you know what I am? And the voice said this: no, Dan, I'm here to tell you I love you right where you are. I'm like, hey. Laid the gun down. Who loves you right where you are when you knew better and you throw every blessing away in your life? Only Jesus. Only Jesus. So let me tell you, if you want to be a man or a woman of God, deny yourself. Deny it. Pick up your cross and follow him. Turn your back on the world. The world's got nothing for you. Don't look to the government to save you. It's not going to save you. The government is the problem. Jesus is the Savior. Jesus is the one. Jesus can turn this whole thing upside down, and because see, the government is only going to give us what we want, and unfortunately, we want bad stuff, I think, sometimes. After the disruption, I was restored amazingly. That woman over there is more like Jesus than anybody I know. She calls it, my wife, she calls it black and white. There's no gray. For some reason, God let me have her, keep her. 48 years now. She's not perfect, but she's a Jesus person. After that, we started going to this little church, about 11 families, and what happened was I got sick. I got terminally ill. They said you're going to die within 5 years, probably maybe a little bit longer. But you either have limb-girdle muscular dystrophy or you have ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. But right before that year, God spoke really close into my heart. He said, look, no matter what you see, taste, smell, or touch, I want you to trust me. No matter what it is, trust me. I won't speak to you anymore. Because God speaks. He does all the time. And he didn't say nothing for that year. And I started to die. I mean, I literally, at the point that November, after he told me it in January, November, I was barely able to walk. I couldn't write my own name. I had atrophy on this side of my body. I was dying. Couldn't hardly breathe. So the pastor said, you need to get up and talk to the congregation because this little group of people are going to watch you die. So I got up and said, look, they say I might die. You know what? If God slays me, I'll praise his name. He's worthy of praise. Even though he takes my life, that's what it says in the Bible. I said, well, will you take care of my family? Will you help my family? I gave the sermon. The first sermon I ever gave in that pulpit in that church was, we overcome the enemy. You want to beat the enemy up? This is how you do it. Number one, we beat the enemy by the blood of the Lamb. Guys, we don't have nothing to do with that. Jesus paid it all, did it all. Jesus plus minus nothing. He's the power. He's the source. He's everything. The blood of the Lamb, the word of our testimony. What do we say about God? Well, God's good as long as my air conditioner's working. Come on. No, he's good all the time. Well, he's good as long as my house stayed up. God's blessed my house. Well, yeah, I'm glad he did. I'm glad people pray, but God's doing multiple things and multiple levels, and he could do some crazy stuff, and it doesn't matter because this is not all there is. If this is all there is, if this is it, check me out now. This life is not all there is. God has a life for us beyond this cardboard ready to burn place. Word of our testimony, last thing, people leave this one out, that you don't love your life even to the point of death. Don't love it. If you found your life, you lose it. So the Bible says. I preached that sermon on Sunday. Tuesday, I woke up Tuesday morning, healed. Completely 100% healed. I told my wife, I see you feel great. I could do push-ups. I couldn't even write my name. I was doing push-ups. We're going to Jerry Lewis Foundation at Duke University, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go, but it's not there. Went up there, and they saw my file was about that thick. They hooked all the electrodes on my arms and did everything. They checked my neurological system. They said, Mr. Stanley, we see your file. We know what you've been through, and we're getting ready to fit you for a wheelchair today. However, it is gone. Gone. I said, what am I supposed to do? He said, go enjoy your life. I figure God owns me about 7 times. Literally. He created me. He invented me. He loved me. He saved me. He put his life over me. He saved me from being stabbed and losing my life. God owns me over and over, so I've got to give my life back to him. That church in Rockfish Church in North Carolina was a church that we started with 11 families of people, and it didn't have much going on, so we started doing missions. And I'll tell you what, if you want to see miracles happen, do what God tells you to do. Miracle after miracle we saw. I could tell you stories that I can't believe that. Well, I'm telling you, God is an awesome God. He's a healing God. He's a delivering God. He's a freedom God. And God so changed my heart and put me through emotional healing. I forgave my mom. I forgave my dad. Went through all of that, a lot of work. But here's the reality. I don't go around saying, well, I'm an alcoholic. No, I'm not. I'm a delivered son of the living God. And God has a plan for me that goes beyond any of that stuff. That is not my identity. That is what the enemy wants to give me. That is the story he wants me to live. The story I'm living is the story that Jesus Christ gave me, which is in his grand story. And when you operate in that grand story of his, God does miracles. I've seen it. It says in Galatians 2:20, my life verse, Galatians 2:20, I have been crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live, but the life I live by faith in the Son of God. I owe everything to him. Rockfish Church grew from 11 families to 3,500 members to become one of the fastest growing churches in the nation in 2019. And this is so cool. It wasn't me, I had a team, I had a great team. It was a military town in Fort Liberty. Fort Bragg, sounds better. Anyway, they changed the name. But Fort Liberty, military turnover, all military. I mean, it's like you're looking out there, generals and people, and they're not playing game. They're not playing wishy-washy game. They're seeing combat, Desert Storm. They've been through all the veterans, and we had all that going on. People getting hurt. We had special operation units in the room. So we had to be a powerful church telling men, you can serve God. It's not for women and children. This is for men. Men need to rise up in their families. And those guys, we used the U.S. military as the largest mission sending organization in the world, and we used the government's money to do it. Yeah. Because when we put something into them, they go to Iraq or they go to wherever they go. Afghanistan, they're on double mission. They're taking the gospel of Jesus Christ when they go. Went all over the world. We saw miracle after miracle. I preached the gospel in Algeria. I took 84 people into Algeria. I took my 14-year-old daughter one time into Algeria where it's against the law to preach the gospel. And my wife said, if you don't bring your daughter back, don't you bother coming back. I saw this, though. I preached the gospel. I'll quickly get out of here because you guys got to eat, right? Are there any restaurants open? Anyway. Squirrel. Anyway. I got up one time. They let me go in because I worked at the UN, for the UN on behalf of a Muslim people. These are Muslims now. These are not, but they're cultural Muslims. They've always been friends of the Christians. But Algeria is against the law to preach the gospel. It is go to jail, maybe die. Buddy of mine, we did go to prison for preaching there. They wanted me to preach the gospel in Algeria in the middle of the desert. Well, the desert, it doesn't rain, right? Went out in the place and we were preaching to the Muslims, and during that particular time, we saw 16 Muslims give their life to Christ, which is really amazing. During that particular time, it was the people that didn't even hear the gospel, and we started seeing more Christians and more Christians happening. But I was preaching the gospel up there, and I was preaching a story. I wasn't shoving Jesus at them. I was saying, here's the deal. I believe Jesus Christ is God, number one. But here's the deal. God has to show you. So I'm praying for visions and dreams and God to show up on your behalf, that you'll wake up and know that who this God of heaven. If you really want to know the truth, you'll find the truth, and that truth will set you free. And here's the reality. The Bible tells me in Psalms, it says, and I had my Bible open, I said, that God will cause streams to flow in the desert. He'll make it rain in the desert places, and life will spring out. And it can do that. It hadn't rained there in 7 years, not a drop. When I closed my Bible, as I was closing, rain dropped on my Bible on that verse. It rained so hard, it melted their houses. Because they have the clay houses and tents. Kids had never seen rain. They were treated like, oh, like snow or something, like if Floridians ended snowing. It was like rain, and it rained so hard it knocked the entire airport out. It knocked the whole thing out. We couldn't leave. So here we are in the middle of the desert, and a Muslim man comes to me and says, look, your guy who was sick, he'll be okay. He would be okay. I said, yeah. He said, I go pray. He prayed over him. I'm like, oh, great. Now he's got a Muslim prayer over him. He's over there, and he comes back. He says, this guy says, no, this is no joke. He says this. He will be okay. Jesus has no boundaries. Do you believe this? I said, oh, you? He said, me, liberated Muslim. I said, whoa, I know what a liberated Muslim is. And I said, how'd you find out? The ambassador, I probably should say that. Anyway, someone brought Bibles, and they studied the Bible, and they learned. Anyway, I saw miracles happen. So on my way out, getting ready to leave, I had my little passport, and all these, I think it was 8 airplanes getting ready to leave. Finally, we can leave the airport. They'd say, where's the passport? I'm in line. Guys with 2 machine guns right there. The guy behind a bulletproof glass with a little slot. He says, hand him my passport. He said, parlez-vous français? No. Inglés solamente. I don't know. Only English. He said, you pastore. You pastor? Oh, no. Guys with guns, it's against the law. You're going to jail. I thought for sure my daughter, I'm like, I'm in trouble. You pastor. You come here to Tinduf. Yes, sir. You pray? Yes, sir. You pray? Yes, sir. He started grinning. He went back in his chair like this. He said, you pray, you make it rain, you bless all the people. You're messing with me. God was on the move and is on the move. So I'm going to tell you here today, I don't know what storm you have in your life, whether it's an emotional storm, past history. Maybe you're in one. I really believe we're either coming out of a trauma, going into one, or we're in one. That's just the way life is. That's negative, but that's kind of how life goes, right? But this is not all there is, guys. This is it. If this is it, count me out. I'm here for one reason. Make disciples of Jesus Christ, because he is the only reason to live, and his purpose is the only purpose. I know we live in paradise, but we saw what can happen to our paradise. But the paradise that God has for us will never fade away. I'm here to tell you that God, my testimony, nobody will ever love you like my Jesus loves you, right where you are. You don't have to scrub up, clean up, look right, pretty. He sees you every minute of the day, and he loves you. Here's the cool thing. He doesn't want to leave you where you are. One of the things I'm addicted to is life change. We can change. We can become like Christ. We can become imitators of our Father in heaven. We are not bound. We are free. I love freedom ministry. I love people getting free. I'm addicted to it. I want everyone to be free. I want awakening to happen so we become free, so we're not bound by the past. And, well, that's just the way I am. No, not your personality. God can redeem your personality. He can redeem everything about you. Your past, your present, and especially your future. You might be here saying, well, you don't know what I've done, Pastor. I can match you probably. But I know this. He loves you right where you are, and he's not going to leave you there. He doesn't want you there. You're his kid. I know he can move. The Bible says that he can restore all the years I'm old. I'm getting older. Not maybe like some of you guys are old. I'm older too. I'm going to be 70 pretty soon. All the years the cankerworm has eaten, all those years, God can restore them. I don't care. It's never too late. You could be a powerhouse for Jesus Christ, no matter what your age. And all those years back there that you just regret and all, just throw that where God threw it, in the sea of forgetfulness. He says, I'll remember them no more. Pick up your new life in Christ. If you're able to stand, will you stand? We'll just pray. Father, you leave the 99 to go after the one. Lord, I know that in the beginning I didn't like church. I didn't respect it. But you know what? She's your girlfriend. And I better treat her right. Lord, I realize that you leave the 99 to go after the one, but you want the one to come back to the 99. You want us to work together. There's no Lone Ranger Christians. There's no one that can just do it by themselves. We need one another. I pray, Father, that you would allow every one of us to find our giftings, our purposes, the plan you have for us, regardless of the story we have been sold by the enemy. We rebuke those old stories in Jesus' name, and we want the new story to be written. A story that includes the power of God and the Holy Spirit moving in our lives. Father, allow us to see your name made spectacular in our day. We don't want to give up our inheritance. We want to be a co-laborer with you, Jesus. Help us, Lord, to be awakened in our spirit, to be awakened in our community, to take whatever difficulty that is out there and say, God, what are you saying? What are you trying to get my attention about? Father, help us. Help us to know that you'll never leave us. You'll never forsake us. And like Elijah, you come back with the whirlwind and take us home one day. Take us to be with you forever in the paradise that never fades. In Jesus' name, amen.
Oh, amen. We're going to worship one more time before we leave, but I just want to challenge you. If you've not made room for Jesus in your life, do it today. It's a vast difference leaning on his understanding than your own. There is a peace and a joy that is uncontainable, no matter the situation that you go through. And he still holds space for the hard times in a way that no one else here on earth will. So we do have our altars, and they are open for you. Your chair, you can meet him there too. But I just ask, if you've not opened your heart and made room, maybe do that today. Let's worship.
You know, God says a lot of things about catastrophes in the Bible. Matter of fact, Jesus was asked a question about the tower that fell and killed a bunch of people. He said, look, it had nothing to do with their good or bad or worse people. It had nothing to do. He said, it's the reality of it is, and the message from Jesus at that moment was, he said, it sounds kind of harsh, but he said, unless you repent, you shall all likewise perish. Meaning, we need Jesus. We need a Savior, don't we? We need a Savior today. And he's right there waiting for you. So if you don't know Christ, if you've never given you, just surrender. Just don't wait for the next catastrophe. Just say, look, I need to surrender this being of mine, my purposes, my plan to you. Get with God today on that. You don't need a pastor. You don't need, I'm here to talk to you if you want that, but you just need to say, Jesus, here I am. And watch what he does with your life. It's amazing. He's a creative God. And he can change you into a whole new person a whole new creature that looks a whole lot like him. Till later, peace out. Grace and peace.